Since March 2018, more than 120,000 Syrians have fled the north of the country as the regime and its allies win back control of areas around the capital.
هذا ما يتوج تطهير جميع بلدات الغوطتين الغربية والشرقية تماما من رجس الإرهاب المسلح التكفيري.
This puts the regime in a strong position, effectively regaining 60% of Syria in the last months. They've done it by deploying the same tactics used 6 years ago in Homs: surround, starve, bomb, and eventually conquer. The Assad regime gives two options to families once they surrender. Either get on a bus heading to Idlib, one of 3 de-escalation zones, through an agreed safe passage, or enter a reconciliation agreement that puts them at the mercy of a brutal regime. For those who decide to get on these buses, they will be joining thousands of people, including fighters and their families.
Idlib would be a tremendous concern because Idlib is in many ways a gigantic refugee camp. It's 2.5 million people in Idlib. More than half of these are internally displaced. We cannot have war in a refugee camp.
War because the regime has intentionally packed the city with opposing groups.
The Syrian regime sending the people who are opposing him to Idlib because he wanted to be a president or a government on the people who are just paying the loyalty to that regime. And this was his plan since the Russians started to intervene.
Al-Nusra specifically has been used by the regime and Russia as a reason for attacking these de-escalation zones. Idlib has strategic importance for both Turkey, Iran, and Russia. It is one of the 2 opposition-held areas on the Turkish border. It has one of the few border gates that remains open on the Turkish-Syria border, a security concern for Turkey. Right now, Idlib poses a dilemma for Assad and his allies. The province is guarded by Turkish soldiers who are monitoring the ceasefire alongside Iran and Russia. If, as expected, the regime attacks, its forces would need to confront or skirt Turkey's bases. But while there's been much focus on Idlib, Daraa can't be ruled out as potentially being targeted before Idlib. Daraa is much smaller than Idlib, and unlike it, there are no monitoring posts there. That said, Russia, US, and Jordan are the gatekeepers of the area, managing its security from Oman. Daraa is also a very sensitive area as it shares a border with Israel. But whether it is Idlib or Daraa which is hit first, the fear is the same: a full-scale attack like the one on Eastern Ghouta on a civilian population.